Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
You are watching a Fact TV presentation of the Village of Bellows Falls Trustees Meeting.
Good evening and welcome to the Bellows Falls Village Trustees regular meeting. It's Tuesday, May 9th, 2023. And about 3-4 minutes after 6, we're down here in the town hall over here, if anyone's interested in coming, besides our guests. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. We need to approve 2 sets of minutes for Thursday, April 11th, 2023 and April 25th, 2023.
Motion to approve the minutes of the April 11th and the April 25th, 23 meetings.
In a second,
Second.
any discussion on either set of minutes? Okay, hearing none. Thank you for saying no, because I know, and if you find something, you'll let me know. All right, then, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? None? All right, we're all set on the minutes. Any additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters and or pressing matters that will require ratification at a future meeting?
No, but just a couple of handouts that were not in your packet. Jen's going to be presenting some items that are related to our national opioid settlement money. So that's the handout you just received. And then Gary has an updated ARPA form from, we have all the trustees participating. And so we have an updated tally for that. So we'll do that later on in the ARPA section of the meeting. They're on the agenda. They're just pieces of information that were not available on Friday.
Okay, great. All right, then, next thing on the agenda is public comment on items. Anyone here for anything other than a specific item? Okay, anyone out there? Don't see a hand.
See anybody
Yes, good,
on Zoom? Okay.
thank you. And then we move on to the manager's report.
So just a couple items. First of all, we did put up the banner, lasted about 24 hours, and then it had a little failure. So it's been repaired, and Sean's hoping to get it rehung hopefully tomorrow or later on this evening if he can get somebody else to go up in the truck with him. So hopefully you'll see it hung again and we won't have another problem. The BF garage, they're finishing up. They did some paving. They've got a few items in the back that they need to get rid of. And then I'm going to ask DEW to open up the street here soon so that we can have the street open. I don't believe they're going to actually start admitting tenants until sometime in July, but quite frankly, there's no reason why we can't get the street back open. I think most of the heavy construction, once that paving is done, is pretty much finished at that point. So I will give the board an update as to when we're going to get that fully reopened, just for hopefully soon. So I'll let you know as that progresses. We had green up on Saturday. It was always interesting what comes in, but people did participate. Lots of participation in the downtown. Folks were organizing and doing stuff, and there was a nice turnout for that, so that was appreciated. I think Betsy organized a lot of that, the green up day activities, so she's giving us a thumbs up, so I guess that means it's all good. So that was basically it.
Great. I would like to say one thing about the BF garage, and that is only that after they took down fencing, there is an open gap space that goes right downhill between the Chinese restaurant and the building. I don't know why it hasn't. Is it going to be fenced off? Because I'm afraid some pedestrian or someone coming out of PK's late at night might wander down there and have a horrible accident. And I guess that's my question to you, Scott.
I'll talk to them about it. There's no plans to do anything to close that off. It's not supposed to be accessed for any particular purpose or reason. It was never really something that was supposed to be used as a cut through. So they basically restored it to the condition it was in beforehand.
I know, but
So
it's an open.
I can ask them.
Yeah, it's actually, it's got a set of stairs on it.
It's not stairs though.
What
It's
is it?
just to the left of the stairs going down. It's a several feet drop off. Even if there was just a simple rail there,
That's all I'm saying, something
it wouldn't even
that,
have to be
you
fenced
remember
in.
what used to be between PK's and the restaurant, the pizza restaurant. They used to, remember before they extended PKs, there was a huge gap there. I know my husband remembers being thrown over that in some kind of fight when he was a lot younger. But it's one of those areas that you could have exactly that happen. So yeah, it'd be nice if they at least put some kind of.
Talk to them about it.
That's it. All right, so we'll move on to the agenda. Item number 1 is the proposal for national opioid settlement money. And you folks are here to speak on that, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, Jen, you're
All
on.
right. So my name is Jennifer Tolero-Hybrink, and I'm the Executive Director at Parks Place. Thank you for having us here. I don't know, I watched the last meeting, not the last meeting, but the one where the opioid funding was discussed, and there were questions about Parks Place. So, you know, I'd love to give you a little bit of, just take a minute to give you a little bit of history. So Parks Place is located on School Street. We're a community resource center. So what we do is we house different agencies. We have currently 4 full-time tenants, as well as, I believe, 15 part-time tenants. So different agencies will come and meet with their clients there. We also offer in-house services like scanning, faxing, copying. We help out with people if they need assistance filling out applications or any sort of paperwork. So we do that as well. So when Scott had approached me about the settlement funds, I thought it would be best to get a team together of people or agencies that I felt really fall under this category. Because we don't exactly, Park Place doesn't exactly provide direct services to families. However, we are there if people come in needing support. We can do more handoffs or, you know, help them find or make that connection if they need help with that. But I invited all of these wonderful directors here to talk about what they do. And so I guess it would make sense for them to kind of speak. You guys have the budget that we came up with. So, you know, for Parks Place portion of it, we looked at having a recovery navigator, which we did have in-house already, but the funding ran out for that. So our recovery navigator would be somebody, like I said, in-house, helping support anybody coming in and out of Parks Place needing resources around recovery, or if they had questions around recovery, we would help direct them to Turning Point, which is housed in our carriage house. So I don't know, Mike, if you wanna introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Mike Johnson. I'm the Executive Director of Turning Point in Springfield, and we also have our carriage house here in Bellows Falls because we wanted to extend our recovery services to our neighboring towns because we're the only recovery center nearby. And I don't remember how many years ago I was coming to patch meetings down here in the morning, and it would be great. We had some stuff down here, so we started having an office, and then we started having a coach come down once in a while. And now I have a team down here, and we have the carriage house, so we can offer the same services that we do at our recovery center. And with, you know, the opioid issues that we've been having, you know, being able to reach people and work with the police departments and EMS and do overdose outreach, we have several different teams. So some of the funding that we're looking at on here is I would be able to add another person to cover shifts so we can keep the center open more often. I mean, you know, somebody in the office on a regular basis. So to add a staff person, you know, part-time to cover any gaps, and also your trained recovery coach and hopefully send them to the emergency room academy so they can go out on the supportive outreach program that's reaching people who've overdosed. We go to their homes and meet with them and help their families and do those kind of things. We also offer family supports, youth program. We also have programs, you know, is the typical 12-step meetings that people have, but we also offer alternative programs as well, because it's not just one path to recovery, it's all paths to recovery. And so we've been working as much as we can to help this issue, and the numbers haven't gotten better in the last year. And so we're trying to intensify our presence and our ability to reach people in our community. So it's been difficult. So for that one position, that was the part-time position, the outreach person is the person who works with our community partners at the police department and overdose outreach, with the EMS and with the hospitals and try to reach out to those community partners so we can help them. So we can help them and be able to get more referrals from them so we can help people. Our services are free. We don't charge anything. They don't need insurance. Recovery is free because we're also people who are in long-term recovery. I'm also a person in long-term recovery. And I think it's important because we can reach people on a level that they can find some trust and able to, when they pass someone off to us, we have an opportunity to have a conversation with them and say, yes, I know I've been there, and so we are making a difference and the numbers have grown. We're seeing more people. We work in 2 hospitals, emergency rooms, 24 hours a day. And we're helping take the load off from the staff there as well. So, and so we want to be able to help to take some of the load off from the folks from the ambulance service and the police departments. They can call us. We can go to someone's house. We will meet people where they're at. So, and those are the 2 things that we want to be able to offer.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Cancellieri. I'm the Executive Director of Frontline Foundations in Bellows Falls. We're the Greater Rocky Area Services Building. Been there for about 2.5 years. We are a small PTSD clinic, essentially, for veterans and first responders. We are a mindfulness-based program, an original program that teaches resiliency skills to veterans and first responders who might be struggling with the effects of like long-term repeated sustained trauma on the job. We also have expanded recently to doing in-service trainings for fire departments, police departments, and private ambulance services. We have a 4-hour resiliency training that's pretty comprehensive. If I can remember it off the top of my head, the training goes basically like this. The first hour we spend describing why it is that if you're a first responder or a veteran, why is it that you need to have some kind of a practice in your life, something that you can fall back on? Why is that any different from any other job? Why is the person stocking Swiffer pads at Target not in need of a mindfulness-based or other practice? So that's the first part of the training. The training then moves on to describe like further what the problem is by getting into some of the ways that the body and the mind process trauma and stress. We then transition right into like, what can you do today? If you leave this 4-hour training right now, even before the end of the training, what can you do to mitigate some of the effects of long-term stress? And that has to do with diaphragmatic breathing and some other breathing techniques. And then having given them something that they can leave the training with immediately, we leave them with a longer-term practice. And that's mindfulness and meditation. That means a couple of specific things. And it doesn't mean a lot of what you see in the media, and I won't take up your time with that right now. But in my program where people come to us for help for PTSD, we've served over 100 people since we've been in this location. Veterans, combat veterans, veterans that never deployed, firefighters, EMTs, paramedics. And a lot of the times I'll get a firefighter who's also a paramedic and a Marine Corps combat veteran. We're pretty deep in this general community with some of the larger professional fire departments that are around here. And so anyway, that's who we are. We're a very small team. Our entire staff consists of me and my wife and our licensed independent clinical social worker, Jen. And we have an intern, believe it or not, from Tulane University online. Who was a firefighter for 15 years and a paramedic, and now he wants to be a social worker. And we're lucky enough to have him as an intern. I've been in the mental health field for a long time and finding like real high quality interns that you feel good about putting in front of your clients, that's a little bit rare. So we got like 4 people, we got this small program. We're trying to make it with health insurance reimbursement, which is, I don't want to like grandstand too much, but it almost seems designed to cause the failure of small organizations like us. Anyway, I'm rambling. See, I told you how good I was at this. Basically, in the budget, you'll see that there is a line item for $1,800, I believe, for 2 trainings. This is the resiliency training that I described a little bit earlier. It's the same training that I've given 7.5 times to a private ambulance service that's in this area. It's pretty successful, gotten a lot of good feedback. We would bill $900 for that training to help kind of defray some of the costs of all the other stuff we got going on. So that's what came to me in the line item, and I could do 2 trainings for that. We could do police and fire. Usually about 15 people per training for didactic purposes, that's ideal. If we had to squeeze it up to 20 to get like the whole department or whatever, that's not an issue. But that's who I am and where we're from and what we do and why we're talking to you about this budget today. Thank you for your time.
And Neil?
Hello, I'm Neil Allen. I'm the new director over at Greater Falls Connection. I've been at GFC now for exactly 1 year today. I started as the communications fundraiser person, and when Laura left the position, the board was kind enough to offer me the position, and so that's what I've been doing for the last couple of months, and I'm really looking forward to continuing the work that we've been doing and expanding it in other directions. There was a real good platform set for me to like build from, so I'm really excited about that. As for my part of the budget, Vermont just introduced a new certification process for prevention specialists. It literally came online like 2 weeks ago. So what I would like to be able to do with that money is to pay for the application, the test, and then have a little bit of extra in case there's some training, because you have to have like 175 hours of training, and most of it's free, but every once in a while you have to pay for it. So that additional 400 would help me be able to do that, so that we'd have, I think in our community, probably the first prevention specialist, certified prevention specialist. Thank you.
We'd be more than happy to answer questions if there's any questions about our role. Oh, go ahead.
Well, on your budget, it's off. The Parks Place piece,
Okay,
$20 an hour for 250 hours is actually $5,000,
Yes.
not $3.
yes, it was, I think we were off by, I think it was like $2.
No,
It's 150 hours.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
150
Yeah.
if you want 3,000.
No, thank you for,
So is that the correction?
yeah,
Or did you want to add more money?
no, that is the correction.
Okay, so it's 150 hours. Okay.
I'm not sure
We don't use that.
I was, I had 6 people read this over, so good catch.
what is the recovery navigator? I'm sorry, I missed that.
No, it's okay. So the recovery navigator is a position that we did have in-house. Basically, it's a recovery coach that's located at Parks Place. So when there's people who come in looking for any sort of recovery services or looking to get some information about substance abuse disorder, or we also hand out the what are the bags called?
Harm reduction kits.
Thank you, the harm reduction kits. So anything like that, we have that person in-house to make that connection.
I can just say that the person she's talking about actually went through the academy to be certified recovery coach under us at one time, but she had taken the position a while back as being working there at Parks Place, and so she's still connected with us, and we still help supervise her on her recovery coaching and stuff like that. So she always has updated information, but I'm glad she's found a place where she feels at home, but she should use her skills. And I think it's an opportunity where she can reach people at least and be able to, do warm handoffs to us or to other people that, that can help that person out. So it's a matter of continuing connections. That's what it's about.
Is there one more to present or no?
No,
I'm here for moral support and
Okay.
learning.
Okay.
I just took the position as prevention specialist at Greater Falls Connection.
Making sure you're not overlooked.
I'm just causing trouble like normal.
I know there was one more section I had to talk
Community,
about.
the community.
Outreach piece. I thought you were gonna do that.
I am doing community outreach.
That was a little bit of what Mike Johnson had mentioned. So that's the person that will go out into the community when there's an overdose, or meet with a family, or go to the emergency room. Those are all services that are, please tell me if I'm wrong, those are all services that are happening in the Springfield office, but because there's not enough funding to have somebody at Turning Point South here with us, we don't have that coming out of that building. So that's that community outreach person.
Okay, so that's what the 95 are.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And that ties into Turning.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
Any further questions?
I got a question.
Go ahead.
I was just curious, so all these various programs that fall under your roof over there, are these just specific to citizens from Bellows Falls and Rockingham, or do you take in folks from
That's a great question.
anywhere?
That's a great question. So we cover the greater Rockingham area. I'm very bad with this, so if I'm wrong, please let me know. We cover Saxon River, Grafton, Athens, Westminster, if there's Westminster residents that come to us. And then we also cover a little bit of North Walpole and Walpole. But we've been trying to collect data on that, and we haven't been seeing a lot of New Hampshire residents, but we do.
Okay, so it's the Greater Falls area, basically.
Correct, yes,
Greater
yeah.
Falls.
And are all of these, well, first off, thanks for what you guys do, because I know it's a challenging environment. But, so these are all for hours within one annual cycle, and are these positions that previously existed, or you're creating new positions that will need to be funded in another cycle?
I can speak for the programs that we're doing here. This is just a fill in a position until we secure other funding for it. So, and we have a great grant writer on staff, and we're always trying to expand because our need has grown so much. You know, we used to be just Springfield and 3 of us, and I have a staff of over 20 now. I'm in Springfield and Bellows Falls and Windsor. We cover a lot of Windsor County as far as the outreach stuff, and northern Wyndham County, which is Bellows Falls, because you gotta go so close. It's like neighbors, you know, so.
Right.
Did you get your question answered? Wait, they do cover the Greater Falls area. I guess if you extend from that question, my question would be, are you going to these other communities as well as asking for some sources of funding too, trying to help? I mean, clearly, this isn't enough money to do a lot of things you're doing.
The funds that we're looking for is specifically here to establish another position here. And so then we can see how many hours we're gonna really need, and then we can establish, but to find the funding to fill it and continue going forward. And you know, we did that in Windsor and a couple other places. A lot of the opiate funding has helped us get our feet wet, see what it looks like, check out the turf, and you know, so to develop. We've been here a while, so we know we needed another person here in the office. That's one thing. But as far as the outreach stuff, we're waiting to see how that goes too. So we're trying to build on that.
But you do solicit funds from other municipalities that are in your region.
Yeah, for those regions, and most of our funding comes from our base grants and stuff that we get, and we have a lot of foundation stuff that we try to bring in because we're covering a lot, and you know, everybody's got to get trained in ongoing trainings. And so we try to get a little help from each community that we're in, so we can continue working with those communities. You know, a little bit helps, you know, and
yeah,
we'll try to fill in the blanks, you know, and then build from there. And we see what we need.
Anyone else? Do we need to take some action? Is that what
Well,
you're?
just for the board's information, you do currently have in your budget, you've received $19,433 in settlement funds to date. There are more funds that are programmed, and they roll in various tranches. So we get them sometimes from some of the primary manufacturers. Most recently, we've been getting them from the major drug distributors, and then now they're starting to reach out to some of the retail folks that were distributing the pills, you know, the CVS's and the Walmarts and the Walgreens of the world, and so they're participating. So each time they go through one of these updates, there's more funds that come through. So you certainly have enough money on hand currently if you wanted to seed this portion of outreach and some additional support services. And then certainly we can always ask Jen and folks back and see how we're doing and see if things are, being progressing, if things are working out. There's lots of ways to sort of keep in touch with us, but you certainly have the ability, if you'd like to do that, to start.
And this is what we're supposed to be doing with the money.
It's the goal of the money, absolutely. And certainly our community has been impacted dramatically, so.
What'd you say our current balance was?
$19,433 today.
So would someone like to make a motion for the
I'll make
request?
a motion to approve the funding proposal here today with the correction to 150 hours. And for $12,898.32.
I'll second it.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this?
Yeah, I think it's good that people are here, that they're involved, it's good seed money. And hopefully, we'll have more fun with the results.
That's great. Thank you for your time. And all those, I'm sorry, did you have something?
No.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any nays? None. You have it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you, Kim. Tough job, I'm glad you did. And we move on to the next item. on the agenda. Consideration of permit for 2 events, June 14th and June 23rd.
So 2 separate organizations have approached to have events. So the high school is asked to do their traditional post-graduation street parade in and around downtown through Atkinson Street from the high school. So that is requested for June 15th. We traditionally don't necessarily need any additional public safety support. We tend to have a couple officers on and then just sort of handle things, and it's not a fairly significant event. It's over with within a half hour, 45 minutes. And then the second event is a follow-up event. This organization has been in town before, if you recall. I think the board had solicited previously and had followed up with some information the board had requested about just the organization and their advocacy and what they do. This time they did also add some additional backup information as to some of the advocacy and programs that they're currently providing through this Rough Up Incorporated. And they're specifically asking for June 24th to go and basically set up one of those fill the boot kind of drop offs. So they're 2 separate events, 2 separate times, 2 separate organizations. Either one of which, quite frankly, will impact us in terms of our staffing or any of our.
Because of where they're,
Right.
where they're doing that.
They're not terribly disruptive.
Okay, June 24th for the rain day of June 24th.
Correct.
So they're definitely a worthy organization. Would anyone like to make the motions for these 2 or do separately? It's up to you.
I'll make the motion. I move that we approve the 2 parade applications, one for the high school graduation on June 15th. And second, for the date of June 24th, for the rain date of June 25th, for the Rock Up organization.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion, although I'd like to point out on the agenda, it says June 14th on their application, June 15th. I'm assuming their date is correct.
The
Graduation, I think
is it the 15th?
I think
It's usually a Thursday night.
They applied for the 15th. Our agenda says the 14th.
2 meetings a Thursday.
Is that correct?
It's a 6:15 and 6:23, right? Those are the two
Yeah.
on the agenda itself. List those 2 days.
As long as everyone's aware, graduating is on the 15th
Yes.
of June.
Yep.
All right. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is 2023 past grant and updated police camera and server projects.
So if the board remembers, and this, you have to go back in your Wayback Machine into 2022, we had applied for a grant for cameras. At that time, we were going to use the Axon camera system. We had a proposal from Axon. We had submitted our application. Everything had been approved through Vermont League of Cities and Towns. And then our good friends at Axon were unable to provide any of the materials for the last year and a half. So we went out and back into the marketplace and looked at other alternatives. We have been able to come up with a different provider who has a different program. And basically what these cameras are is it does use a website, so it doesn't back up to our server, creating that data problem that we've been having. But what it will do is it'll have a 30-day onboard digital backup. And then you can take those and if you need some information or you need to take periods of time, you can download that into events or incidences and then download that into the cloud. There is a cloud-based application. Then every 30 days, it just keeps reporting over. So it provides the same basic services. The interesting part of that is, if you remember our original proposal, over the course of 5 years, it was going to be about $47,000 for the Axon system. Just the portion that we're asking for reimbursement for from passive is only $7,242. This is really just focusing on the areas that potentially are related to police liability and prisoner handling and just general liability within the building. Overall, the police and fire have both, the fire side has also asked for additional cameras. We did not fund that in the current budget. So if you put both proposals together on the police side and the fire side, as well as some additional cameras, we talked about putting 2 down at the Waypoint Center, because we've been having more and more incidents down there as well. The total is roughly $33,000 for 5 years for the Verkada system. And then we would then apply for the $7,500, so it'd be about a $25,000 additional. So I think what I would prefer the board to do, at least at this point, is I'd like to get the passive grant submitted and then come back to you at your meeting on the 23rd with our updated financials and take a look and see if there's a way that we could fund the balance of the cameras and make a proposal to the board at that point. But at least for tonight, I wanted to at least get the initial grant and the initial portion in so that we can try to, passive money runs out if we don't get our submissions in. So.
You mentioned the Waypoint Center. Is that going to be included in the request?
Well, the same, it wouldn't be requested for funding from this board. It's just the same installer, the same, it comes with the same basic camera systems. So.
And that would be requested on the town side?
The town would be into that. But I didn't want to hold up on going through another town meeting and then coming back to you guys for another meeting and then not getting this application in. So I just wanted to put in the bare minimum police stuff for now, and then we'll come back to you with a proposal to do the balance.
Well, I'll make a motion to, you need a motion?
Please, yes.
To file the 2023 passive grant application for partial reimbursement on camera equipment.
Do you need, and for the manager to sign?
That's fine. Yeah, authorization to enter into the contract would be great.
Good. Need a second?
Second.
Oh. Any further discussion on this?
I just want to clarify something.
Yes.
So these the 3 indoor and the 2 out, these are all for the police fire facility?
Only for the police side,
That these,
not for the
5
fire
cameras.
side. The fire side is completely separate.
Okay,
Yeah, and we
So they're
couldn't
all-
use we couldn't use the fire side as part of the passive application, because this is really, the idea behind these
Right.
cameras is to reduce that liability
Yeah.
in case we ever had any police-related misconduct. So,
Okay. All right,
yeah.
that's it. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None, we're good.
okay, thank you for that.
Moving forward on that, yeah.
So there's always things to do in our building. We talk about it all the time.
Oh, that's the next time, yeah.
Yeah, the police fire building itself. So wanted to just sort of bring these to the board's attention. I'm not asking for any specific action tonight. There are some just wear and tear items that we would like to try to address in the current year. The flooring replacement on the police and fire side is mostly vinyl, the VCT, as well as a little bit of some of that worn carpeting in some of the administrative offices upstairs that have basically just worn out. 24-hour, 7-day-a-week building, these things start to happen. The gutters and ice dams, I finally have a proposal from a contractor. We had had proposals from other contractors and nobody would commit to doing the work. So I do have a proposal now for roughly $15,000 to do the ice dams as well as the additional gutters around the outside of the building, and we talked about that was sort of that next step after we did the work along the foundation where we were having the water penetrations. We had mold in you guys remember we had mold in the basement, and we had mold in the storage in the basement, some of the material down there. So this is sort of finishing up that project. So that's where that money would be spent. Dispatch, we're still working with our radio vendor. We have a schematic on what's required for the update, which I gave you guys just a copy of the schematic. We don't have pricing at this point, so I don't have anything further for that, just to say we're still working on that. And quite frankly, my thoughts there are that we would work very specifically for Homeland Security EOC grant funds for that. It's right makes perfect sense for that. As soon as they can get us that information, I'll be back to the board to talk about how we might go through that process.
That's on the dispatch.
That's in the dispatch itself. So really, it's more of the terminal that she works with, and some of the other equipment in there is aged out. Some of it's aged out to the point where they don't have replacement parts. So if we have a failure, we're in trouble. So that's all it's doing, is just updating that. The Lula lift is a requirement. If we want to use additional areas of the building, it has to be accessible for ADA. We've talked about the upstairs and doing some other things and making some of that space available. Because of the height, it doesn't, none of the existing infrastructure, it has to be, I think it's 14 feet is the cutoff, I believe. And I don't think we, for some reason, can't meet that requirement the way we're currently set up with our current situation. So we'd have to replace our lift in order to make it functional and ADA compliant. That's where that $150,000 proposal comes from. Again, I'm not looking for money for that. We're going to go out and apply for USDA community facilities funds for that. We think that makes perfect sense. We talked about the cameras, and we'll come back to you at the 23rd, as a follow-up on that full proposal. The last piece that I just wanted to bring the board's attention is on the Sally Port. We did have one breakout of construction and estimating. Did get a second update, so that number has shrunk a little bit based on some updated estimating. Still beyond where we want to be in terms of budget and potential moving forward with funding and other options. But I think what I at least wanted to bring to the board's attention was some of the key, as you can see, some of the attached materials, how it would work. We looked at redesign. Would it make sense to only do it as a one bay garage versus two? And quite frankly, the savings on that was less than $40,000. It doesn't save you a lot of extra costs, because most of your costs are sort of in the larger costs of integrating into the existing building, tying in some of the structures, as well as integrating into the functions which is why I wanted to show you the schematics of how the processing works for police officers and prisoners. And as you can see, how the flow would work in this revised Sally Port versus our current processing. And you can sort of see why we have some real officer safety and just general processing concerns about how we handle prisoners. So really what this will do in the long run, these improvements will make things much, I think from an officer safety standpoint, if we go forward with this project, it certainly makes a lot of sense. And the way that we handle and process people in and out of this building will be a lot safer if we pursued this. So that's really what we've done up to date. We have not gone any further. We have not looked at any more grants. We've not really gone any further. We're going to talk about ARPA tonight. So we really haven't proceeded past just this baseline. But I wanted to give you just that sort of overview of where all of these various projects stand at the moment. Because everything that we do in that building is disruptive. So every time we have to try to do a maintenance project, or we're trying to do an update or whatever the case may be, since we are a 24-hour operation, it creates a lot of operational concern and problems, plus the costs. So I think it's just important to keep the dialogue open with the trustees, make sure that we're all at least understanding the process, understanding what our options might be for outside grant funding, and pursue as much of it as possible, recognizing that at this point at least, and this is certainly a board decision if they wanted to down the road, I don't foresee us replacing that building necessarily. So in order, we're not going to replace it. I think the next best thing we have to do is to sort of update it and maintain it properly so that it at least functions. And that's why some of these numbers are sort of large and intimidating as they are.
Any questions for Scott?
Well, any feel for the, there's a difference here, couple $100,000. Yeah, between, or at least 150,000. Obviously the centerline architect's proposal is more complete.
Well, it's funny, different estimators have looked at this at different points in time too, Jake. So sometimes I think what you're seeing is this second set of estimating is reflecting, I think, more of the market in terms of how pricing is starting to come back a little bit in relationship to project costing. Right? I think everybody was just throwing out numbers before. And I think the reality of it is some of the economic conditions have changed. We're starting to see some of these numbers start to come back a little bit. So I think that there's even room within this number to see that drop even more. As I think some of these, the economic impacts of interest rates and just general economic conditions are changing. So we're not proposing going forward with this at the moment. I think we have a host of projects on our list that need to get done, and quite frankly, will take some time to get through, especially if we're going through grant processing. Community facilities with USDA is never, it's a long process. And same with Department of Homeland Security, EOC types of funds. So I think the goal here is just to keep all these in your, just sort of in your mind as we go along, because we'll have to revisit at various points in time what's fundable, what's reasonable, and what's just not going to happen. So that's really why I wanted to just summarize some of that and just keep the board in the loop as we go forward.
So comparing the two diagrams, I can see what we gained as far as enclosed area for the vehicles.
Yes.
Looking at the existing design and the flow from prisoner in and egress and so forth, has that been looked at just for redesigning that volume with different entry and flow, for instance, from the office accessing through that same, I guess it's a window now behind the stairs of room 118?
No, we haven't looked at that as a separate, just a new entranceway or trying to reconfigure.
Because I could see the office becoming the interrogation and then right into the cell and then moving the wall between the current office and interrogation to the left and gaining office space.
Isn't that the outside of the building where they have windows?
But you can cut through and have a,
Right. I mean, there are other options available. The key there is you don't have the secure. Once you do that, you're gonna have to bring the person right from the parking lot. So you have to bring them through a door. Either that door right now where they take them through the side door there, or you have to create a new door in the back and bring them in that way.
I think that's what I was suggesting.
Right.
My understanding was that one of the issues now is that you're bringing the person through vestibule onto the staircase and
It's not great.
that, which
Yeah.
doesn't, if you can avoid that through a redesign, and it's not a $750,000 project.
Yeah, I think what in the concept of the design, the way it's currently established with the salary port is obviously right at the shortest path with the least amount of opportunity for a problem. Or you take them right from the salary port to processing to a cell, if that's the case, right? If that's what the person requires. Not everybody obviously goes to that, but at least that's the flow. But we can certainly refine that, Jeff, and look at those options too. What we don't get when we do that is the idling time on the vehicles, because they'll be sitting out in the parking lot. I know we've been trying to figure out ways to manage our fleet, and really, quite frankly, we're not beating up our vehicles with the amount of mileage or beating them up with the amount of time that they're idle. That's really what wipes out our police cars. They idle in the winter, they idle when they have all of their, computers and everything up and running, all the communications, and that's a constant drain on those vehicles.
Of course, that's happening not just at the building, wherever they are.
Wherever they are.
When they're on
Absolutely.
patrol and they're sitting in, and they're watching an area and that sort of thing, they're still running.
True, it does. I mean, you're right.
Which is what we're encouraging.
Yes,
Sure.
no, I'm simply saying, that doesn't just happen at the building.
Right.
It happens wherever they are out.
The idea is that it would not be in the.
At the building.
At the building as well.
What this sort of breakdown of projects does not include, and this is something that we talked about just in broad terms at this table, is any kind of EMS service running out of our facility. Right now, that's not being looked at or part of these project conversations. EMS, as we all know, is a concern, going to continue. It's going to be a concern, and
But would that be shared space then?
I don't.
Yeah, how that would.
Because if you're
We had
talking
talked
a
about
big
that at one point in
secure
time and
space,
offering that to, because I know that Golden Cross wanted to get out of the facility that they're in Westminster. They were looking at options. I think they might have secured something else. So they wouldn't necessarily need our building, but we'd also talk to Rescue about doing the same thing.
It seems that works against the argument of having the security of the Sally port. If you're suddenly you've got EMS utilizing the space.
Well, they would be on the apparatus floor. We would
Yeah,
create
they
a
wouldn't be
space
selling.
in the fire department side, because they'd also have access to three quarters. It's a whole different arrangement. And quite frankly, we just have not really invested any real, beyond just the initial conversations, nothing more with that. So lots of things are still going on with fire and apparatus and all sorts of things that are still going to impact that side of the building. So more to come on that. But at the moment, this is just sort of just an overview.
Yeah.
The third floor of that building is a huge space.
Yeah,
And it was obviously designed for firemen living there.
a resident, yeah, for
Yeah.
overnights and absolutely.
There's a big oak area, there's a huge lounge type area. Then there's the kind of the conference room, which we've used a couple of times for interviewing and things like that. But it's at some point it would seem as though a relook at that space in terms of what functionality the community could, particularly if we have a lift.
Once the Lula, you have
I
to have
agree
that.
with you. Once the lift is available, then I think that's a definite space planning and sort of evaluation as to how that space could really be more functional and more useful. I agree. We've used it for limited types of training, like defensive driver training, some other limited regional kinds of training for fire, some of their required trainings, but we have not really done a lot in terms of outreach for other types of uses.
Did we have that, ever had that exercise group coming into the building? I think they were. Yeah. Okay, there's.
They do it, yeah.
So it's, but again, it's limited and there's a lot more things we can do once we have a lift in there. Sure. Anything further to Scott on this point? While we think about it? That move us on to the LISFF grants in support of Class A biosolids program.
So a while back, you guys remember, we were looking at multiple ways to fund the 10-year upgrade study from Aldrich and Elliott. So we had broken out sort of some of the, we requested the full 2 million plus from the state, from their ARPA funds, and we're waiting. The most recent information I got from them was that they will be having a public process about the intended use plan, and there'll be a follow-up sometime in late May, early June, as to what's going to get funded. And originally they had told most communities that they were looking at funding at 55%. So with that, we still had a fairly substantial deficit that we wanted to try to find other funds for. So Gary and Betsy had been working with this grant application for the Long Island Sound Futures Fund, because quite frankly, our plan and our process and the ability to take our Class A material, apply it to a farm within a watershed which drains to the Connecticut River, and it ultimately drains the Long Island Sound, is exactly the kinds of demonstration projects and the kinds of best practices that they're trying to encourage communities to follow. So I think this is a real opportunity for us. Betsy has been working with RMI and with Josh, and we've been trying to pull in as much technical data as we can into our application. So we feel pretty good. It has to go in, I think, tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. So the goal here is, I just wanted the board to be aware, and we do have a letter of support on our existing, we're asking for 930,000 from the Long Island Futures Fund. There is no floor. And quite frankly, with our initial investment already of 250,000 plus, I think we've more than met our potential match requirement. And if we can get this money plus some of the money that we talked about with the state Clean Water Act money, we'll be in decent shape to really come back to the board with a solid financial plan about this 10-year upgrade. And hopefully be able to do the vast majority of it without going to ratepayers and saying, okay, guys, we got to go out and bond $1 million worth of improvements. But the good news is your rates will only go up slightly in the next 20 years. But I think we can try to pursue this and feel pretty good about it and see if we can get a vast majority of that funded with these two specific grant programs.
It is due tomorrow. Yeah.
I didn't put the whole grant in front of you. Betsy was still working on it as of 6:15 today. So it's still being drafted and in progress, but we are asking for the full.
But that would include for the silo or storage?
So it would include the storage and
facility?
materials handling. It would include the heat recapture in the building. It would also include the flood proofing of that building,
Good, which is one of the things we wanted to
which
do
is
for you.
some of the things we wanted to do. It would not include some of the heavy process updates that we need to do in the plan itself. It wouldn't really qualify for that. But I'm hopeful that the other Clean Water Act money will help pay and offset some of those costs. So that's the way we're pursuing it, and we'll certainly, got our fingers crossed here that we're successful.
When are these awarded?
Did you say June?
Well, the Clean Water Act funds will be in the end of May. They're supposed to have it
Okay,
at least in a intended use plan, and then they have to go and have the intended use plan as a whole public hearing process, and then they finalize their submissions, I believe, by the beginning of July.
okay,
The Long Island Sound Futures Fund, we have to be in by May, but they really, as far as I know, and maybe Betsy knows, when they're actually gonna do the grant awards.
No idea.
It didn't really say in any of their application, any of their program information, so.
you hit send, it says good luck. That's all I know.
This is something that came to the village? This, I've never heard of the Long Island.
Well, I guess I was aware of it because I worked in a community that was on Long Island Sound.
Yeah.
So we had applied
That
in
helped.
the past for stuff that was much smaller than this, wetland restorations and,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But this is really, to me anyway, this is right in their sweet spot, and they should quite frankly be supporting us as we should be what every other community should be trying to pursue in this watershed. This type of process, this type of investment makes sense on a lot of levels long-term. Reducing commercial fertilization, the way the Class A biosolid works, it actually enhances the way the plants and actually helps, the plants, the yield from the farm is actually more robust because of the way the nutrients are released from the Class A. And then you're not hauling all that sludge material 270 miles upstate, dump it in a landfill.
Definitely reducing our
So,
footprint that way, yeah.
if there's ever a point in time where everything makes sense to me, it makes sense to pursue this one, so.
If you're ever in the Stanford, Greenwich, Fairfield County area down there, they're pretty popular.
Are they?
Yeah, that movement.
It's, and again, the long-term goal here is, they're trying to get rid of these dead zones in the Long Island Sound because there are places in the sound that
Right.
just depleted oxygen, nothing grows because of all the nitrogen and all the other problems, so. In the long run, it's in all of them benefits, so.
Our entire ecosystem, right?
So that was just an FYI, and again, I appreciate all the efforts from Betsy and from Gary. It's, these things nobody ever makes it easy to apply. So
You need a vote on this?
Yeah.
I don't think we need any, at this point, I think our letter of support, at this point, I think it's on our agenda if there's ever any concern, and we'll certainly keep you in the loop as this thing goes forward.
It's clear we have no objection.
And we didn't have to ask for any matching funds at this point, so I didn't want to put anything in front of you, because there's really no appropriation for me to ask you for tonight, so just wanted to kind of bring it to your attention.
Thank you.
Say something, I'm glad you're not objecting because all your names are on them.
Yeah, that's good, otherwise we're gonna do some rewrite tonight.
No, just don't be sick tomorrow so you can finish.
Yeah.
Don't say consent.
No,
No, we get done.
I gotta get in there early tomorrow.
It's a good project, it's a good application, and we got our fingers crossed here on this one.
That brings us to the last item on the agenda, which is the ARPA project funding review, now that everyone has had a chance to weigh in.
Thank you for your patience with this. It took a few iterations, and Gary worked on this quite a bit, and
Yeah, thanks,
Jig's
Gary.
got his items updated, so Gary was able to run through and give you this updated scoring. So, Gary, anything you wanted to sort of update the board with, anything specific?
Yeah, so we added a couple of columns at the beginning that just show the totals and the highest score, making it easy. You can see where each of you scored various items. In a phone call this afternoon to get Jig's stuff in, he had some very specific comments, so I added those pieces in there regarding his scoring. I guess to highlight, like most of you had indicated the importance of the the community process that we had and their piece in there. And so the one item that was highlighted from that community process and where some of the conversation went was for revitalizing housing stock, dilapidated housing stock, and using maybe properties available on things that Scott had talked about during the tax sale process, and a lot of properties of dilapidated housing where there's just some small obstacle that the town could manage for the vacant lots. And and Jigs had recommended in something like that, having a 5-year sunset. So you're offering this opportunity and revitalizing of properties, and if it's not getting used, put the money back in the general fund. And so that's what those comments were at the bottom. The top scorer was the boiler fund at Graz. The second place was a biosolid storage program. So that could be something like if there was match money needed to go along with the grant to leverage that. And then you're talking about the importance of the Lula and the public safety building, that came in third, tied with that community process, the revitalizing housing. And the two projects tied to fourth, weatherization energy audits. And so the municipal energy, renewable energy program is providing weatherization audits, but it won't get through all of the buildings. So I think folks were scoring that there may be some buildings that use a lot of energy that you want for audits and that aren't funded. And concrete stairs is something that ended up tied for fourth also. And yeah, and so the form's laid out with the weighting so you can all see how each other weighted items and why the scores come out the way they did.
So I think what would be helpful for us is, like we had talked about with some of these items on the update with building projects, and also then trying to find, are there other grants that might help offset some of the costs so that we could use ARPA funds to help supplement or enhance our application if we want to go forward on some of the things like we talked about with the Lula specifically. So I think from a staff perspective, it's helpful for us to get these prioritized, which we appreciate the board's work on that. And then that'll give us some guidance as to how we can spend some of our staff time to help get some of these priorities underway, with the goal of, again, we have to at least have the funds encumbered by the end of 24 and spent by the end of 26. So it sounds like a long way away, but as we all know, things slide, and before you know it, we'll be looking at least, the end of 24, having to come up with our, final $886,357 worth of ARPA appropriations. So, which sounds kind of silly, but that's the way the program works.
That's the way it is.
That's the way it is.
Okay. All right, so what would we like to do now? Well, I know that the boiler fund came to the highest score. However, we have not agreed on a value to set to that if we wish to do it. And it's part of the funding stack, as Gary had said, so whatever we contribute.
So for example, we were working, and Gary and I have been working with Marty on some submissions for a CDG grant to help offset some of the costs as part of her funding stack for her boiler. So it's, at this point in time, I don't think we could come to you with a specific number. She's got 2 or 3 grants that she's secured, and she's working on a couple others. So I think it's probably a little early to say, okay, she probably needs X or needs Y. But at some point here, probably in the next 6 months, we'll be coming back to you saying, here's where the funding stack has resolved itself. Here's what the potential gaps are. How would you like us to proceed to help her get that project underway? The same thing with, we'll be working, like I said, we have 2 major applications in that deal with our biosolid and our wastewater treatment plant. So I think we're working towards those goals. The concrete stairs, which came out fairly high on the priority list, is not something we spend a lot of time or energy looking into. So it's something now we'll have to do a little bit more work on and get a better sense of the cost and a better sense of how we might want to get those repaired and look at options for that and bring that back to the board.
What are the concrete?
Those are the 44 steps, and I don't know why we don't just call them what they are. The ones, the church, yes, their side, the church down to Main Street.
Okay,
Oh, it is.
which I thought was the part of the town's responsibility.
It is. I mean, as they maintain sidewalks and streets and so on and so forth, but they've never allocated any money towards the effort.
We're asking the town, we, meaning me, to commit to a 5-year capital improvement program for sidewalks for $100,000 a year. They've been committing only $35,000 a year roughly, and some of that goes towards Saxon River. So you guys know that it doesn't do much. I mean, it's, to make any impact at all, we really have to make an effort to increase that level of
And
funding.
35,000 doesn't go far.
Does not go far. So,
I just think I just think, we pay town taxes just like everybody else. And, we shouldn't be using this one-time gift to help the town. I mean, we're already supposedly spending it for the town.
May I ask, what is the town doing with their ARPA funds? Have they
pretty much the
allocated?
same that the village is doing. They've got a list of potential projects, but they don't have final numbers because some of them are still going through funding allocation, like the additional money to help support the purchase of the train station is one. Additional money to support the roof here so that we can do the MERP grant for $500,000 to put the new membrane on, which is energy efficient, and get and qualify for the $500,000 grant for that program. So a lot of the money is tied up into those types of, so I don't have solid numbers to give you specific, we're gonna do this, this, and this. They're all tied to that same sort of process that we're talking about here with leveraging other grants, so.
This last item down here, the invest up to 200,000 project separate. What Gary described, how he described that to me today was to be a fund that would be used to entice people to invest in dilapidated buildings. And bring them back to appropriate residential use. This language here sounds a little broader than that.
It was when I initially proposed it as an idea. And to invest up to allow that we had a pot of money. I know that we have to figure out how we would do that, so it falls in the end 2024 and 2026. But that it was because there were so many items on the list of things that we did, went to the community and asked for that thing they needed to get done, they wanted to get done. That the intention, and maybe that dollar figure was too high, was to have a set aside for projects that we could, so we don't, so everybody gets something out of this. It's not just the things that we believe need to get done, but some of the community really had their heart set on getting at least some seed capital to get done. And that's gonna allocate a bit, when we do that, is whether it's 200,000, whether it's 100,000, whether it's 50,000, whatever it is, that we can we could disperse money to those who come to us with a proposal to request it through this process, through this part of this process. That was.
What if somebody wanted to have an ice cream cart? Is that fair game. I mean,
No,
I
that
didn't
is,
vote
no,
for-
it wasn't on the
I
list of
didn't
things
put
from the
6
community.
points down for that.
The way I interpreted it was that it was to support projects that came about as part of the public
Yes,
process. that
exactly.
Cammy-
And that's what I'm saying, beyond
So
what's on our
There is
list.
a report from Cammy and Associates
Right.
as to what people discussed and cared about.
I see your hand, Gary.
Cause like I said, I voted 6 points here because I thought the idea of, trying to help entice people to, take some of these dilapidated buildings and make something out of them was worthwhile. I think to have it in a, I mean, that's kind of specific.
That's specific, but that came from Gary, it's not on our list.
To have it jumbo, I wouldn't put 6 points, I wouldn't put,
You wouldn't have put a six
I
on
wouldn't put,
that.
I wouldn't put a 0.
Okay, Gary.
Yeah, so, what I did was I read Jake's so we had the community process.
Yeah.
And we have 3 top scoring projects in each municipality, and so one was create new housing and revitalize the current supply, that's that dilapidated, address the obstacles to using those, vacant or abandoned properties. Number 2 was replace health center boiler. Number 3 was Island Street revitalization. Then in another municipality, number 1 was transportation master plan for districts lacking in development and outdoor rec. Number 2 in that one was solar on rooftop village buildings. And number 3 was the sustainably designed community center. For another municipality, number 1 was replace health center boilers. Number 2 was build out the riverfront trail extension, and number 3 was Main Street Arts redevelopment as a community center. So those are the community projects, and you still get to allocate to those. And so I think what Jigs was doing was picking the one of the community projects that he would support for a priority, because you still need to do that as a board, even,
Right.
so these are the community process projects in that item.
What are the village ones? Let's be specific.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Dropping in second one's Bellows Falls and the third was section.
So the Bellows Falls ones.
We have the report.
Please repeat. Yeah.
Transportation master plan for districts lacking in development and outdoor recreation. Install solar panels on rooftop village buildings and sustainably designed community center.
Okay, so those are the. I can
I mean, it's
imagine.
just, we have a very nice senior center, we have a very nice rec building that's not utilized.
Yeah.
Not utilized appropriately.
Not maximized, yeah.
And the senior center is underutilized. I know the high school is gonna fix the tennis courts. I mean, we have plenty of fields and things like that. So it's, I think it's, I think we wanna make a difference with this thing. And like I said, these dilapidated houses, that to me has merit. Now, we also have this Rockingham loan fund, which is underutilized. And that's why I mentioned to Gary that we sunset. In other words, if we can't entice people to take on these projects, then after 5 years, just say, put it back towards our taxes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because the idea is to entice people to do it. I mean, it would
Right.
be wonderful to.
I don't think the ARPA funds we can't put them into general fund though. We can't return them to that. So we do have to be specific about what it is we're spending that money on.
Well, I'm sure the trustees, I would keep this under the control of the trustees. I would say that
Yeah.
the trustees could very easily, fund a capital issue or whatever.
Yeah, and we have to spend it by the
Yeah.
end of 2026. So I'm sure that it's possible. $200,000 sounds like a lot of money
Yeah.
up front, that's not. So,
I would boost up the amount to I'd be flexible in terms of the, because of this, they've got such a high score on the boiler fund. You know, as I said previously, I think the health center, in terms of our population, residents of Bellows Falls, and really the greater Rockingham community, is a vital asset for us. And so I think I think when we first saw it, it was 100,000. Then I saw it got to 50.
Yeah.
And I would be more willing to go up to 200 or something like that.
Yeah, I
because-
think if you go through this list and you just put numbers next to the ones that scored highly.
Yeah.
The Biosolic
Go from there.
program, 200,000, the boiler fund, it put 100 in. I don't know what the energy audits for municipal buildings would be.
I thought we were getting support through that, for that though.
The regional, Wyndham Regional is working with us on that to make
Yeah,
it
so
so.
not putting any numbers in for that, or the concrete stairs, and then 150 for the Lula elevator and 200 for the community projects. You're at 650.
You're spreading it,
You
yeah.
still have $236,000 that hasn't been allocated, so I
Right.
give room to.
Which ones did you put down? You put.
A biosolid storage program, we'd initially talked about 200K,
All right,
and then the boiler fund, we'd
you
initially
just
said
said 100,
100.
just while we're
If we
rocking it out.
skip the energy audits and skip the stairs, and then allocate 150 for the Lula and 200 for the community projects,
Yeah,
that's 650, leaving 236,000 that has not been.
yeah,
So
yeah, allocated, yeah.
funding all of them pretty fully, and then you could boost the boiler.
I'd want to put up to 200 on the boiler. I think it just.
That's
But
fine.
the town hasn't put any money into it.
Yeah,
They-
but it's-
they haven't
it's
yet-
Bellows Falls.
Yeah, no,
I'm worried about-
But they serve everybody. That's all I'm saying, is like, there should be mutual contribution from the communities that receive
Greater
our funding.
Oh, and
And
then
it's
the
called Greater Rockingham.
reality says that's not going to happen because the town was not the benefactor in the amount that we are. So,
Well, they're gonna put some money in the meeting house, gonna put some money into the train station, and then I think there's a couple of it still there to be
Right.
determined. And
Yeah.
live here.
I think
Well,
we need to be allocating based upon what we feel the community is getting benefit from. It's not tax generated at all, it's either ARPA funds for the
I do understand that. I simply stating my opinion that the entire town of Rockingham plus other communities near us, Westminster, so on and so forth, also needs that building.
Right, well, the numbers thrown around originally for the boiler was at one time 50,000 for us, and then
Yeah.
another time 100,000.
Yeah, I know, it's gone back and forth,
Right,
because we haven't decided on anything.
correct.
and these have to be committed by when?
End of 2024.
End of
End
2024.
of next year.
So we're really just very, at this
Yeah.
point, we're trying to just start to work on some numbers and some appropriate, marrying up some grants and some opportunities to leverage as much of this as we can.
Is the elevator, is 150 a good number?
Pretty recent numbers.
That's what you have, yeah.
Yes.
I would think we'd be inclined to bring the hammer down on, see what we want to definitely get done, like Lula. And then,
See what else?
yeah. see what
Proceed
else.
from there.
If you get the, Jeff's mentioning a balance of 236, there's other items, I'm sure, that the board and management can come up with.
Well, I don't think we have to commit to anything. I think the idea is that we can look at what we have for funding and all of the projects we want to fund, and then do the distribution as one.
Yeah, make motion for it, we agree with this
Oh,
plan.
yeah.
Yeah, fine.
And the plan can change, right?
Yeah,
I think
right.
the idea is we're trying to get your priorities, we're
Right.
trying to work on how we can, get you guys to a,
But you're gonna have to be locked into contracts before the end of 26.
No.
well,
I don't think-
end of 24, you have to spend it all by the end of 26.
And
So it has to
what's
be-
that on 26?
It has to be spent by the end of
Spent by
26.
26.
So that
yeah.
means contracts by end of 24,
Yeah.
Right,
or beginning of
Well,
25.
that's realistically not much time.
Yeah, that sunset, would, it doesn't have to be 5
Right.
years, it would have to be 3 years or whatever.
3, yeah.
And the,
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Jiggs. There's a substantial investment between the town and others involved in recreation here. It's already been done. But my looking at this is stuff that, wouldn't need to be sustained through taxpayer dollars after these monies are spent. Once these monies are gone, they're gone. I don't want to have to come back, or I wouldn't want anybody coming back, whoever's on this board saying, well, now we gotta sustain it by raising
taxes, right?
Uh,
Well, that kind of thing occurs when, particularly if we were to pay for positions.
Yeah.
Or, you know,
You
add
build a
money
new
there.
facility, right, something that's not staffed, and then you
Right.
gotta staff it, you gotta maintain it, you gotta
Right.
operate it, that's a whole different approach.
I mean, I agree with you that there are some things here that are not being properly used. The rec center is one of those. It's never been fully available, and it could house, I've always thought myself, a youth center, which would eliminate the need to build a specific community center. Because there is senior services, and those are there, but there isn't anything really for the youth. They don't have a place to do and learn and teach, you know, and also be able to do babysitting services and staff a building like the rec. So, because it's only half the staff, based upon the way it works right now, and I think it's never been fully utilized. I think there are ways to do that, but they might need some seed capital to do something even within a building. And that would be an opportunity for community projects.
Well, to me, it's a leadership and a priority item
Mhm.
that had never been addressed.
No, that's right. Yeah.
And, you know, I think if the select board was, you know, take that seriously, you know, I think for Bellows Falls to create recreational facilities that's already supplied by the town of Rockingham.
Yeah, doesn't make sense.
Overkill.
I think we made some good headway today.
You have a hand up, Jamie Barrick had a hand up on the
Oh.
Zoom, so
Okay,
I had texted him earlier, said, you guys were talking, so Jamie, if you want to unmute.
you're on, Jamie.
Jamie, can you hear us? Jamie, can you hear us? I know. I was just trying to get his attention. No?
Yeah,
His hands are-
There's,
but
you know,
his mic's open, so.
no, okay.
Jamie, if you can speak to us, this is your opportunity to do so.
Maybe it's dinner time.
Yeah.
Well, he's definitely there, unless you're taking it off. You do that?
No, I had done it once before.
Volume turned up, I'm assuming it is, right?
Right.
It looks like
We're trying. Yeah, you might have.
Yeah,
walked
Jamie, I'm
away.
not kidding. Can you send something in the chat even, and we can at least respond to that? If you can hear me? I had sent them a message earlier, so.
We can certainly give him an opportunity to come back in a few moments. So he might be having some difficulty on his own.
The other thing here was the biosolid, if some of these grants go through.
We won't need that. Right, so then that will put it back in the pot again. So again, we still have more funds that we could expend. Now, we mentioned them, we really haven't agreed upon the dollar figures for each thing at this point. We're just kind of trying to, we see our priorities based upon the numbers. Want to see what we can do with them. And there's still money available for some of these other projects on there, which we can talk about our next meeting.
But thank you, Gary, for your efforts and
Repeatedly, getting us some numbers we can work with.
I have one more question on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
We're still giving him a chance if he
Yeah.
can. That looks like a no. Go ahead and ask your question while we're still waiting on Mr. Barrett.
It was for the manager.
Yes,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
That's okay, you're busy. Oh, look.
There you go.
Oh, during paving, redressing sidewalks. We are doing sidewalks, Jamie. That's a separate item because they have allocated money from a prior year sidewalk program, and then next year's sidewalk program, and we're going to ask them to add additional money in this year's budget, so we would have $120,000 worth of sidewalks to do for this season, and then asking the board to commit to $100,000 for the next 5 years for a catch-up provision. The select board, not this board. And the question, you know, they have not been able to, once they commit to the 120, we'll put that out to bid. And then we have to update our sidewalk, we have a 2019 sidewalk analysis that we will then be updating to try to find the places that have the lowest rated sidewalks and try to do those first. So that's the goal with sidewalks.
Okay. Wait,
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
On
Did that
the,
answer question?
Where the hell was it here? Replace dated wastewater mains. Don't we have like a mile or a mile and a half of like real ancient wastewater, you know? Isn't it something like that?
Well, probably the biggest challenge we're gonna have is if we do the redevelopment on the island, those are gonna have to be updated. That's probably the biggest challenge we have. And quite frankly, there, it's more of a question of trying to find a way to get through the granite. Right, it's
Yeah.
through the rock. So Rob didn't really isolate or identify, you know, a specific problem area like we have to address these. So,
I thought he did, huh?
Yeah, that's that increasing that is because of development. So,
yeah,
I thought he mentioned once that he had like a miles of old asbestos cement line.
that's water. That's the Kissel Hill
oh, that's,
project.
yeah, that's it.
That's our last big section of asbestos coated pipe, and that's being discussed as part of these state grants too. So we're waiting to hear back on that. That was Kissel Hill.
You have a sense of what that $500,000 sidewalk? And is that 20% of our sidewalks? Is that
No,
or not even?
depends on the pricing that we get. There's only a few guys that are doing it right now. That's the other problem. There aren't as many guys that, you know, used to be able, you could get 12 people to bid on a sidewalk job.
Yeah.
I think there's 3 or 4 guys now that are doing that kind of concrete work consistently.
Yeah,
So I'm guessing it's $100 or $120 per 10 linear feet roughly in that neighborhood.
Okay.
For a 5-foot section with, you know, or a 5-foot width roughly with, you know, 4 to 5 inches of concrete.
$120 for 10.
That's sort of what we were using for an estimate for linear, right?
he's got another
Just
comment.
gotta follow up to that.
Yeah. Well, the problem with doing all the sidewalks in the streets that are being repaved is that some of those sidewalks have been updated and are fairly new.
Yeah,
So we're trying to find areas like Pine Street, a few other areas off of Atkinson that are in worse condition, and clustering those so that they bid something. The contractors give me worse pricing when I hopscotch them around town and do, you know, a short distance here, a short distance there. When they do longer distances, somewhat closer together, we get better pricing. So that's why we're not doing the specific paving of the streets and doing the same sidewalks in that street at the same time. Because some of those sidewalks are quite frankly in decent condition on some of those streets.
Well, plus with the amount of paving they're doing this year in the village, which is a fair amount,
Decent amount.
that would be a lot of. I agree with that, but
Wouldn't touch what we're trying to
it
do.
would be kind of difficult to match all that paving with,
Right.
I mean, it makes sense if you could, but I don't know how you do it. Not this late in the game.
it'd be nice if we could coordinate everything, but it just doesn't happen that way. Where we get grant money and loans available, it doesn't know, we have done that, when we ripped up sidewalks and ripped up streets and did water and sewer.
Right.
you know, all at the same time. But it's difficult to get that all coordinated. Anything further at this point on this? I suppose it's something that should just then be revisited, I know,
Yes.
next meeting or next month, and, yeah.
Yeah, we'll just keep it on the agenda as we work on things and we get updates on grants and as we get better numbers. So, you know, we'll keep this as sort of a standing item.
We might consider having some decisions made about things that are town items that are on here. We may not, in the end, want to fund, but it's definitely, that will list down some more. That takes us to the end of our meeting. We'll do agenda items for the next meeting, the 23rd, 2023.
Yeah, so we will have financials on there. We'll revisit some of the items we discussed tonight for the police building itself. A follow-up item, we had talked previously about having something on the May 30th agenda for discussion of police services and potential extension of police services, and I just wanted to know, I got an email from Westminster saying they would also like to participate in that discussion. So I believe they're gonna be coming to the May 30th meeting.
Westminster?
Westminster, our friends in Westminster.
After they pay the water bill.
I would say,
What to do.
I would say no. I think we need to talk to our select board about it before we have Westminster chime in. At least I think.
I don't know, I had a sidewalk conversation a while back, and I'm not so sure if we're back into the Saxon River conversation where we'll pay $7,000, but we want 30 hours a week. It doesn't work, that's not gonna work.
I know, yeah.
I think that, yeah, they're struggling, they're looking at all sorts of options, and I said, listen, you're more than welcome to come to a board meeting, right? I mean, there will be an item we're discussing police at the meeting,
Yes, they'll be guests, so
but I just didn't want that coming out of the blue so that you guys were caught
unawares, yeah.
unaware or sort of surprised, or what are you doing here?
We go to fund something, at one time we had an estimate, and this goes back some years when John O'Connor was in finance. But at that time, I may have the records, it was 85,000 plus.
That was that.
Yeah, so I mean, and then we got the, you know, the pension, workman's comp and everything else on top of that. And if you have to put somebody through the academy or not.
There's a lot of aspects when you're dealing with this, right? Because there's also relationships, the sheriff has a relationship with all these communities.
Yeah.
So right now, we also have a relationship with the sheriff because they do our dispatch. So we want to make sure whatever comes of any of these conversations that we're not getting
No
ourselves.
stepping, but say for instance,
Right,
that an officer leaves the force, and we are our force, and we've already agreed contractually to do business with Westminster. This is an if in the future. What do we do then? We say, oh, sorry, contract's off, we're short staffed, we need to pull it back into the app.
I agree with the manager, let's hear what they have to say, certainly come to a meeting. But I agree with Jigs, take care of the home front first. Bellows Falls, then the town of Rockingham, which encompasses Saxon River, Rockingham, Cambridge, Barnesville.
To me, it's a police force
Well,
is given a territory to
yeah,
protect. And these sidebars, you know, like the sheriff.
oh, yeah,
It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit because we have to be all in it together,
you know,
you know.
I mean,
I think whether it's the town of Rockingham
I've been around for a while,
or the town of Westminster, it has to be we're all in it.
yeah. I mean, we always have these conversations about, at one time, running water and sewer all the way down the bucket. And you know who bears the front of that construction cost? The users. Not everybody in the town can vote for it, but the users pay for it.
Paying for it, yeah.
So what I would say, if that ever materialized, and a couple of previous managers have seriously talked about that, the way you fund it is when we're going by, I'm sorry if you have a well or septic, but you're hooking on. That's the way it works.
Or we don't come at all.
Or we don't come with it all. I mean, to ask us to fund miles of water and sewer in another community and to have the taxpayers here, but the users it's the users that would pick up the tab.
Mm.
You wanna see water and sewer rates skyrocket, I mean,
But then getting back to police,
Well, I don't
and
think
the
we-
public is, it's open to the public,
Right.
anyone can show up, so if they show in force.
These are obviously difficult conversations. This board has looked at police services a couple different times. Nothing really that formal. The last thing I read was 2011. It wasn't happening. Yeah, it's been some time since you had anything, at least formally, run through
Yeah,
and looked at.
we had some discussions at table, but they went
Right.
nowhere, they, we didn't
Yeah,
go
a few years ago, we got a proposal, Westminster wanted us to bid against the sheriff.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's never the
that was, we didn't
I
know
think we have to
any-
maintain a relationship with the sheriff. I don't think we want to get into an adversarial relationship
No.
with the sheriff.
No.
That would be not in our best interest.
But the good news is that the three of us, we might not have to worry about the.
That's true.
Yeah, come the 16th, yeah.
Because the election is expected.
Yes, I'm
next week,
reminding
so-
people that
So,
the
anyway, that's
annual meeting is
Jeff
15th,
and Wade, you're gonna have to worry about.
you're gonna have to worry about, yeah.
I
We'll
mean,
see what happens.
you wanna get all dressed up when we come back?
So let's
and
go
sit
on.
here?
Sit right there.
Have fun?
Let's finish the agenda.
Okay, so, review agenda items for the joint board meeting on May 30th.
We're gonna talk about an updated tax sale policy. Redwood wants to do a presentation. We're gonna talk about policing. There's a couple other items that'll be coming. Those are, so we have 5 or 6 things already on our agenda, so it'll be a full agenda. If there's anything specific the board would like, please let me know. I'd be happy to work on whatever.
Review and approve orders, bills, and warrants. Need a motion for that.
Motion to approve the orders, bills, and warrants.
One second.
Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Other business, Jeff.
Yep, it was a small tidbit of an article, but it was a brief mention for the town of Rockingham, the meeting house in the Yankee magazine, which is currently on sale. So we mentioned that as one of the places to visit while you're in Rockingham.
Cool, that's great. I guess I'll just cover, I have 2 things. Number one, I'm having a lot of, getting calls again annually about the Green Street location, parking next to Dairy Joy. There's areas where people are clustered on both sides, parking all over willy-nilly. There are no tickets being given according to the person or persons I spoke to. And I figured, the first week of opening, people, got all excited about, but we need to make room for people coming in and out of that street unless we expect an exit. So, again, I'm putting it out there, managers are hearing me, that that's a problem on the end of that street, especially the weekends, heavy Friday and Saturday, so. The second thing is, just a reminder, annual meeting is May 15th at 7 PM. We're doing it down here.
Yes.
Down here, in the lower theater, and elections is the following day, the 16th, and that's basically all day, 8 to 7, 8 AM to 7 PM, and good luck to those of us running. That's it for me, Jigs.
No, I'm good, you covered it, so.
Yeah, wait,
The only thing I was just gonna mention was the, I chatted with the gentleman, can't remember his name, but from the Southern Windsor County, Wyndham.
What?
County
what?
Solid Waste District,
Oh, okay.
the one that we're in.
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
Which is also, I think he also has something to do with the Scotty Regional Commission.
Right.
But anyway, he may be in touch with you about gathering some information about the dryer that we have at the wastewater, because they're very interested in it and would like to possibly run a article in it, in their newsletter.
Sure.
that would be great. I need more.
So
He should be the poster child for this program
Couldn't agree more.
across the country,
so you
basically,
may
and
do
especially.
a-
That's great, Tom.
Well, we get seen in the Vermont,
See the director.
thanks.
Maybe, let's talk to somebody up there. I forget his name.
It's great.
Okay,
One
yes.
other thing, just
Yeah,
for the
sure.
board. Do you remember when we put together the steering committee for the Atkinson Street and School Street project? Did we appoint Deb
Yeah.
as our liaison for that?
Oh, yeah, I
Does
think
that
so.
ring a bell?
Yes.
We
Okay,
did,
Oh,
I
well,
remember that.
I have to point somebody else on the order.
so we're scheduling our first virtual meeting for that, for the 25th. It's a Zoom meeting.
May 25th, 3 o'clock.
May
So
25th.
could you pass that to Deb? I thought it was Deb, but I just want to make sure.
remember that.
Yeah.
So,
What time?
3 p.m.
3 p.m. Okay, it's here, we'll see if I have to pass it back to you. All right, well, thank you very much. Okay, and no need for an executive session this evening. And I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, and I will see you guys on the 15th.
Yeah.
This meeting was recorded by Falls Area Community Television, located at 1 Hospital Court, Bellows Falls, Vermont. If you would like a copy of the meeting, our phone number is 802-463-1613, or email us at fact810@gmail.com. Falls Area Community TV, keeping government honest.